Hello again, everyone. Deflect here for Fair Gaming. Want to bring you a tier list as the last tuning before 11.1 has gone out, I believe. It went out on Friday, and it should be set for this week, the upcoming reset, which will be the launch of 11.1. So we're going to jump into this now. Now, remember, this is my tier list somewhere. I think they're going to be. It is definitely not set in stone because it is going to tune up until probably the week after Race to World First is done. So, with that being said, this is the tier list after the changes, my final tier list, because I didn't make one before, knowing there's going to be a lot of change on the PTR. How's it going to go? I'm just going to rate the specs where I believe they're going to go and give you the reasoning behind it. And we're going to start with Ret Paladin. Ret Paladin is doing great damage. Ret Paladin is the easiest spec to play in the game. It's basically a 2-button hero. Yes, there's more buttons you will be hitting, but the majority of it are 2 buttons. It's very tanky, has great utility. It is a really good spec to play. Reason it doesn't go higher is they do tend to fall off on damage versus other specs, and especially in higher keys. Now, they were the most played spec in season 1, and for good reason. It's fun to play. It's fun to hit 2 buttons and do big damage. Like, let's be honest. I do think there should be a difference between damage between a hard spec and an easy spec, but that's just me. Affliction Lock. Ooh, I didn't want to rate this one already, but that's where it is in the list. So, Affliction Lock just got some meaty buffs. They were doing good damage on the PTR, but they got some meaty buffs, and they are going to the amazing tier. I think Affliction is going to do very well right now, and I think currently, without being changed, Affliction will be one of the better specs to pick up. It's got a little more buttons than some of them, like Destro or Ret Paladin. So keep that in mind. But they're one of my favorite lock specs to play, and they just got huge buffs. So they're going in the amazing section. Havoc DH. Havoc DH didn't get nerfs. They got bug fixes, which are going to be nerfs. They would have been S tier, no problem, day in, day out. I'm dropping them in tier because of the bug fixes, where they were double dipping. So they're going to go down to the S tier, or to the amazing tier from the S tier. They're still going to be overshadowed by VDH because VDH is running rampant on the PTR. Like, they are just miles above every other tank spec. Most self-sustained, most DPS. So keep that in mind. You probably won't see a ton of Havoc, but if you do see them, they will be doing fantastic DPS. Really good funnel DPS as well. Evoker. Now, everyone's going to jump in the comments and rip down my throat for this, but I said since they started tuning Evoker at the end of season 1 that Evoker was not going to be meta. Everyone argued with me up and down, said I didn't know what I was talking about. No, when you see the plan, you can foresee the plan. Blizzard wants to drop them. I said to either low A or high B. That's where I'm putting them. Like, they just got nerfed again. They have some good utility, but nothing better than bringing a combination of other specs. If you bring 2 fire mages, you will net DPS way higher. You have double mass barrier, 2 cleanses. You will be in a better spot than bringing a Evoker and a fire mage. 2 fire mages bring more utility, more CC, harder to kill than bringing an Evoker, and higher DPS. So that is the reason. Dog Evoker no longer buffs tanks or healers, and that was one of the key things. They were using it for tank survivability and more healing output, but they no longer can do that. And the fact that they bring blistering scales, which is the difference. It's more armor for tanks, because you usually put it on a tank, but they're really not bringing that much different than 2 fire mages would bring. And the 2 fire mages will crank way higher DPS than a fire mage and an Og. So they're dropping to the really good. They have really good utility. That's where they get to stay. And I know people are going to argue up and down on that, but that's where they're going. Outlaw. Outlaw Rogue. Where do I put Outlaw Rogue? I'm going to put them at the bottom of really good. They did see some buffs. They're going to be decent. The problem is They almost should go in the good. They're going to be good, but there's going to be a problem. They're going in good. You know what? We're getting some separation. We're making some changes. We're not just going to stuff everything in the really good. They're going to be good. They bring rogue utility, which is good. They bring some good damage, but they're going to be overshadowed by the other two rogue specs. So let's just get those out of the way because then you can see why they are in the good and not the really good, because Assassination is going in the really good. Assassination isn't getting much change. They got a couple buffs. They're going to be really good spec. They bring the rogue utility. You know, they're bringing a lot of defensives as a rogue. They're going to be really good. Now, amazing is going to be the sub rogue. Sub rogue got some buffs again. I think they're going to be as good as Affliction is. I think sub rogue's actually going to be better than Affliction. It is going to be a amazing spec to play. Sub Rogue is going to be the top one this season, it looks like, unless something drastically changes in the tuning coming up. Sub Rogue will be cranking the damage. I would suggest if you are a rogue and you like Sub Rogue, this is a great season for you. Destro. Destro Warlock. Destro Warlock saw some changes. Destro Warlock saw a few nerfs. Destro Warlock, if pulled around big pulls, Destro Warlock will still be S tier. Destro can they have the damage profile that no one else does in big pulls. They will do big pulls better than almost any spec in the game. And that's just the way they play. They are very good at big pulls. This season is going to be revolved around bigger pulling than last season. So I think Destro will still maintain its S tier spot. Another one everyone's going to argue with me on is Shadow Priest because, you know, everyone has their own opinion about Shadow Priest. And I'm going to, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave this to last because there needs to be some more caveat and stuff before I put Shadow Priest up. We'll get into Shadow Priest at the end and the reasoning why. BM Hunter. BM Hunter saw a flat 8% nerf, which I think is a little harsh. I would have thought it would have got a 5 or a 6. I think 8 is a bit heavy handed. I think it's still going to do well. I think it, depending on the Havoc, I haven't been able to test on the PTR yet. The Havoc changes how much it's going to bring its damage down. But Havoc was beating BM in damage, and then BM got a flat 8. So I think Havoc will still be more. And BM will still be good, but it's not going to be as good. It will still be like very good to play. BM is still an easy spec to play. BM you can hit all your buttons on the move, which is like it is something to be said about always doing damage, and that's what they can do. So it is still going to be great. Devastation Evoker. This is, you know, it's been so long since I've been able to do this, and this feels great. Devastation Evoker, climbing past Dog Evoker. Boom! Right to the amazing tier. They just got buffed again. More damage. Devastation was doing great damage. They're getting more damage. They have some pretty good utility. Not quite everything that Og brings, but a lot of it. They don't get blistering scales, but they do get Zephyr. They do get the cleanse. They get the bleed removal. They are going to do very good damage. It's going to be fun to play. If you wanted to try Devastation over your Og, this is the season to do it. It is going to be really good. Boomkin. Boomkin brings, you know, Mark of the Wild, which on its own is really good. It's a range DPS, which this season is going to be good. Boomkin's cry until they actually are A tier every season since Shadowlands, so you have that in your favor. They're just really they do some good damage. They change the rotation, so it's not like Shadowlands Venthyr, like you were punished if you couldn't get one global off. No, they do good damage. They just, you know, got a pretty easy rotation now. Fun to play. Dot it up, hit them with the Starfall. You're doing some good damage on big like AoE stuff. They would be Destro Lock really good at AoE. So they fall behind on single target, but they're still really good to play. They'll be amazing. Frost. Where to put Frost? Frost Mage. Frost Mage is definitely amazing to play. I just don't know where in the amazing it's going to hit now. You know what? Because Affliction needs all the love it can get. It's been so long since Affliction has been up there. We're putting it behind Affliction. Frost Mage does, has great damage. Has you bring the Mage utility kit, which is phenomenal. You're hard to kill because you're a mage, and you just bring everything to the table. You bring um intellect, which is if you're running a couple casters, is really good too. So it's definitely going to be in the amazing tier, but it's going behind Affliction because Affliction needs more people to back it. Where are we gonna put Arms? Arms Warrior. Arms Warrior was for sure. Arms Warrior was going to be low S tier. They got a 5% nerf, and I think that's gonna drop them below Frost Mage now because of the 5% nerf. They were doing insane damage. Like Arms was cranking. Arms is also a warrior, so they're hard to kill. Really good self-sustain. They don't really bring them. Battle Shout's really it's pretty decent. Intervene's kind of dog shit. But they were cranking the damage, so they are going to be amazing still. For the warriors. Unfortunately, I'm gonna grab the other warrior spec now because why not? The other warrior spec is going into hashtag Nerf Fury because Fury just gets shit on for no reason whatsoever from Blizzard. Season 1, they were doing decent DPS, but it was only on select fights in the raid, and then they got nerfed into the complete ground. After that, they had to start buffing them near the end of the season because they were so bad. And then they buffed them up on the PTR, and then in the last thing, just before the pre-patch, they were still in, mediocre damage. They gave them a hard 5% nerf, too. Oh, yeah, I had to chuckle about that. I know some Fury Warrior players, so that'll really irk them. But there was that thing going around, hashtag Nerf Fury. It was funny. On Season 1, didn't matter what it was hashtag Nerf Fury because that's all they were doing. Oh, so Frost. You know what? We can do Frost. We can do Frost and Unholy at the same time. They're interchangeable. They're basically in the same spot right now. They are DKs, which makes them very good with defensives. They bring grips. Their damage is almost hand in hand. If you play one over the other, if you specialize in one of them, I'm sure you can do more with the other one. But they are very close in damage. I'm gonna give Unholy just the ever slight edge because it has more build variety. But that's it. They're both really good DPS. Not much has changed since Season 1. Both a good pickup if you're looking to play DK. You can't go wrong with either spec. Serve Hunter. Serve Hunter always does decent damage. It's really fun to play. It's definitely better than the other two in good, but I think it falls short of Assassin Rogue for damage. So it's going at the bottom of really good. You're a hunter, you bring the hunter things, you bring lust, you bring your pet, you bring that fun stuff. It's really, it's fun to disengage and harpoon. This is a fun tier list. It might move up, but for the damage and what it brings, yeah, you're really good. There's nothing wrong with Survival Hunter at all. Windwalker. Where do I put Windwalker? You know what? It's going above Evoker. Seen enough Evoker, it can go down. Windwalker. This happened every season. So watch every season. Windwalker. Everybody always predicts Windwalker way higher. Like you'll see people having Windwalker up in the amazing and shit. No. Windwalker always does the same thing. It does okay DPS, shitty survivability. They were better at survivability before the War Within. They nerfed their survivability. Now they're like the squishiest class in the game. I enjoy playing them. Monk is my favorite class in the game, but that will be my backup DPS because I will be maining Mistweaver. But they'll be really good. They'll be really good. They won't be up here in the damage level, but they'll be really good. Their damage profile is good, really good. There's nothing wrong with their utility. It's decent. You don't really have much to complain about. It's a really good spec. It's just not amazing. I don't know how else to put that one. You're a little squishier than everything else, which kind of sucks. I wish they would give it another defensive. But yeah, it's really good to play. So if you want to play Windwalker, it's just really good. We could caveat that with a big mediocre if you want. Fire Mage. Well, it's no surprise if you've heard anything about the PTR and you Googled it one time, you know where this is going. Top of the S tier, Fire Mage is cranking right now. It wouldn't be surprising to me to see 2 Fire Mages in a key. That's how good they are. The Fire Mage brings the utility. Fire Mage is hard to kill. Fire Mage is doing crazy damage. It has everything. Fire Mage is just S tier. If you had a spec that you could say is S tier, there you go. Fire Mage. It is the epitome of the S tier. And to be honest, Fire Mage has always been my favorite mage spec. I like it a lot more than Frost. It's fun to play in the new iteration. So the War Within, Fire Mage is a lot more fun than the previous ones. The previous ones out of the combust window sucked. You just sat there and casted Fireball. It was terrible to play. You felt like you were doing nothing. And then combust windows, you had a whole lot of fun. And then your combust window's over after like 20 seconds, and then you're sitting there casting Fireball again. So they've changed that. It's a lot of fun to play right now. Tons of fun to play right now. And the best part is it's doing crazy damage as well as being my favorite DPS spec to play. So Fire Mage, top of the S tier. And it brings, again, the Mage utility. Like, you have the knockback, you have the disorient, you have the kick, you have the ice block if you want to take it, you have the mass barrier, you have everything you need. The decurse, it's just brings everything. Mage utility. Demolock. Demolock doing really good damage. Bring the Warlock utility. Not much to really say about Demolock. They're doing really good. They're really good spec to play. You get to bring, oh, we'll put it behind Og. It doesn't quite bring that utility. It's going to be there because Affliction is doing so well. Destro is doing so well. Demolock is really good. If you want to play Demolock, you won't be blown out in keys with DPS. You'll probably be near the top. Yeah, you just track a little bit more than Destro. Track your imps, send your imps. It's fun. It brings cookies. It brings Lockgate. It will do damage. It's just really good. Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage. You are going at the bottom. Womp womp. Arcane Mage is just not there with the other mage specs. It could use a lot more love. If you like Arcane, unfortunately, Arcane used to be your raid spec. So before all this, before the War Within, Arcane was always a raid spec because it always did really good single target. It always kind of falls behind on AoE, where Destro does crazy AoE. Sorry, not Destro. Fire Mage can do some crazy AoE. Frost Mage does really nutty AoE. Arcane just it always fell behind on AoE, and it's a little more. Would you say initially it was one of the hardest specs to play. They've dumbed that down a bit, but it's still on the more difficult end. You still have your timing in your windows and your setup, and it's just doing okay damage. It's not crazy. Now, this is going to be the first time in the tier list that I've been able to do this. Feral Druid is going to the S tier. If you didn't see on the last tier or on the last changes, Feral Druid got buffed. Feral Druid was doing amazing DPS. It just got buffed. Feral Druid is going S tier. Feral Druid is a lot of fun to play. If you haven't tried it, you have a lot of things you keep up. Feral Druid is more survivable than Boomkin because every time you cast a finisher, you get a free regrowth, so you can keep regrowthing yourself. You get Frenzy Regen, which you can cast in cat form. It's just Feral Druid is going to be really good. They're survivable. They bring Mark of the Wild. They're bringing an insane damage right now. If you want to play a Druid and you don't want to play Boomkin, try Feral. It's a little mini game you get to play too because there's some abilities that will buff other abilities, but you have to hit 3 that aren't in like a row. They have to hit 3 different abilities. It's like a Windwalker Monk that way. And then you can buff your Primal Wrath or your bites. Really fun to do. And then keeping your dots up, and then you'll have big meaty Primal Wraths going out. It's just great. Feral Druid S tier. Didn't think I would see the day. They've been in the dumps for a long, long time. Ellie Shaman. Ellie Shaman is absolutely cranking. Ellie Shaman is going amazing. It could. Oh, oof. I could almost put it higher up on the amazing. You know what? Think with the nerfs, it's actually going to overtake BM now. It is going to be amazing. Ellie Shaman is just cranking DPS. There is nothing wrong with Ellie Shaman. I hope that if you haven't played it, try it out. The only thing I'm not a fan of is a 3-minute CD window. Some people don't mind it. You can use a talent to get it to a 2-minute ascendance, but 3-minute CDs, if you're pulling around an Ellie Shaman, you will never catch them in damage. They're insane damage. Marksman Hunter. Oh, and Ellie Shaman gets to bring all the Shaman utility. Marksman Hunter. What's there to say about Marksman Hunter? You do mediocre DPS, you do mediocre single target, you bring okay survivability. Actually, you bring pretty decent survivability. You bring okay utility. You're going bottom tier. There's two other better hunter specs. Unfortunately for Marksman, you don't just do the damage that the other two do. The other two are just better, and the other two can cast while moving. Marksman can do it most of the time, but BM can do it all the time. And BM is doing much more damage. I thought Marksman could have used a flat 10 or 12% buff. Instead, they got 6. BM, I also thought didn't need an 8% nerf and could have used a 5 or 6, but I'm not a Blizzard employee and I don't do the tuning. So, Marksman down here, that's where you're going to sit. Enhancement Shaman. Enhancement Shaman is a good spec. It's a great spec, and it does great damage, but does it do more damage than anything else without PI? No. Marksman, or not Marksman, Enhancement was the top spec this season because of PI. They got PI'd every 2 minutes. They're one of the best candidates for PI, but without PI, they're not as good, and they got nerfed quite a bit in the PTR from where they were starting. Also, a bunch of tuning. They're going to do phenomenal damage still. They bring the Shaman utility, which is really great. And because Disc Priest is going to be up there again, they are still a good candidate for PI, but I think they're going to fall short on the DPS to other specs. They are one of the harder specs to play, so if you mess up your rotation, it is more punishing than anything else. They are changing the rotation in Season 2, though, to be said as well. But I do think they are going to do very well. They're just going to fall a little short of Ellie Shaman in the upcoming season. Now, lastly, Shadow Priest. Everyone's going to argue with me up and down on Shadow Priest. It is what it is. People are, have their own opinion, but I'm going to give you the reasons why I'm putting it in the S tier. Right now, it is doing really great damage. With the group comp that you could make, it will be phenomenal group comp you can put together. The group comp will be really fantastic utility. It will all mesh together very well. So if you're playing with a Fire Mage, you get Arcane Intellect, which is good for the Shadow Priest. The Shadow Priest brings the stamina, which is good for everything. And I will put together a group comp afterwards, but the PI you could run with a Disc Priest and have everyone but the tank getting PI. So that is also going to be a huge benefit, and that will also further negate an Evoker. So you could run a double priest meta here, and I will put together a group after that. I will show you what I think will be the top. So far, Shadow Priest, huge utility, big time damage, brings PI, and it's just going to be a very, very good spec in the upcoming season. What do I think the meta comp will be, just to close this out and finalize this? I believe the meta comp will be Vengeance DH, Disc Priest, Shadow Priest, Fire Mage, Feral Druid. Yes, that's right. Feral Druid meta. And the reasoning behind this. This is great for casters. You have 3 range. You are going to get both priests to PI, both DPS, negating an Evoker. You bring barriers and shields from each priest, or priest and mage. You bring mass barrier from the mage. Each priest has shields, and the disc is meta right now for a healer unless anything changes, which I don't think it's going to. Feral Druid is pumping DPS. You could PI that. Basically, I think Tiger's Lust is either a 45-second or 1-minute CD. If it's a 1-minute CD, it's even better because then it will fall every time PI is up. Bloodlust is just under a 2-minute CD, which kind of, or not Bloodlust, Berserk, which is just under 2 minutes. I think it's a 1.8, which kind of sucks if you have to hold Berserk, but for the PI, it might be worth it. On big pulls, it definitely will be worth it. But yes, you will be doing double PIs and everything just meshes together. Mark of the Wild is a great benefit to every character in here. You can't go wrong with Mark of the Wild. You'll have your short kick. You'll have Typhoon. You'll have Vortex. You'll have your Disorient. You'll knock back. You'll have a longer kick. Unfortunately, with Shadow Priest, but you do bring 2 Fears. And then Vengeance Demon Hunter does have some decent CC as well. Second best only to Paladin. And Vengeance is the highest surviving tank on the PTR. Now, what this also could look like is you bring the Enhancement Shaman because it really likes the PI as well. So, that could also be a thing. I'm not sure. Like, for me, I would probably bring the Feral Druid right now. But that's just my opinion currently. I think that would be a crazy meta comp, and you are running basically a dot comp as well, which is insane to think about. A lot of damage, a lot of bleed damage, a lot of ticking damage. Fire Mage has a bunch of ticking damage as well on the, I think it's the Living Bomb one that ticks down. So it's just going to be, that would be a prediction for a meta comp. I'm going to lock that in, say that's what it's going to, until everything changes, in a week or two. But as of right now, that's fun to look at. That would be a fun comp to play. If you have any questions, leave me comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It definitely helps out. And thanks for watching till the end here.